It's great to see you all. This is a bit of a weird setup for me. I'm not really used to doing a lot of public speaking, and so now doing it over Zoom is something quite different altogether. So my name's Mike Reeve. I'll just introduce you a bit to my family. So there we all are. I'm married to Amy and we have 4 children. We've got Abby, who's 8, Joel, who's 6, Luke, who is 5, and Merrin, who is 3. We live up in Harrogate in North Yorkshire, and we're in our 4th year of home educating now. And our style of home educating is that we try to be child-led as much as we possibly can. So we'll follow what they're interested in learning and try and accommodate that. But we do also use quite a lot of curriculum, and we do have periods of structured learning and sitting down and going through curriculum as well. So we're kind of a real mix of how we approach what we do. And before I start talking about my experience of being a dad in a home educating family, I just wanted to give you a bit of a background of our story and how we came to choose to home educate. And so we started exploring home educating when Abigail was about 2, so that's 6 years ago now. And we started doing it because Abby by nature is quite introverted. She's not shy and she's not quiet, but she is introverted. So spending extended periods of time with lots of people and socializing is quite tiring for her. And so we really weren't confident that school would serve her well, and we were concerned that she would go to school, be around people all day, and then come home and just not be able to hold it together, and that she wouldn't be able to thrive in that environment. And you know, by contrast, we found that she was thriving at home, and she was loving exploring life and learning lots of things. And we didn't want to upset the apple cart and change the status quo when we found that the status quo was working well for us. And so we started out on this journey of exploration into home education, and we had this sort of grand sort of romantic idealized picture of what home ed could be for our family, but we didn't want to make the decision and realize that our ideal was nothing like the reality. And so when we started exploring home ed, we started by wanting to find out all of the reasons not to home educate, because we wanted to have a balanced view before we jumped in with 2 feet. And so we tried to look for research into why you shouldn't home ed. We talked to people about home education to try and find the negative point of it. And we just didn't find any reasons not to home ed. And even when we talked to people who had started off home educating and then put their children into school, we found that those people all said that they never ever regretted the time that they had at home with their children. And so, you know, that was just a real big green light for us to take this further. And throw into that at the time when we were meant to be doing school applications and school visits when Abby was 3.5, we moved house into a house that had no central heating and no carpet and no nothing. And so we just really didn't have the headspace to even think about putting together school applications. And so we decided to step out in faith and just go for it. and that was really the start of our journey. And we always said we would do it for as long as it worked. And if ever it didn't work for either us or the kids, then we would look at school. And, we're 4.5 years in, and we've still not even considered doing school. And now we have 3 school-age children, and I don't know where the time has gone. So to put it into some sort of perspective as well in terms of how I fit in, I work full-time, Monday to Friday, which means that I'm out of the house from 7:30 in the morning until 6 o'clock in the evening. And I do have to travel every now and again for work. So I'm very much full-time and mostly out of the house, although at the moment, not so much. And so today I'm going to talk about what my experience as a home ed dad is. And, the title of this talk was The Home Ed Dad, but really I want to major on the fact that I am just a home ed dad, and what I'm going to talk about is my experience, but that it might look very different for you in your family and your setting, and what I'm sharing is by no means prescriptive or advice of you should do this or you must do that. What I really hope for today is that you might take some encouragement from what I've shared, and perhaps some ideas that you can take into your setting and your family. So on to the next slide. I've just got this brief session outline, and this is more for my benefit than anyone else's, so I don't stray off on some random tangent. So I'm going to speak for roughly 25 minutes on those points there, and then, as Juliet said, we're going to have some time for Q&A at the end. Okay, so I'll start at the top and just work my way down. I'm going to talk about vision for your family and what it has looked like for our family. And I said that the talk isn't going to be prescriptive, but having a vision for our family has been probably one of the key foundations for us. And if you're going to take anything away from this talk, I would highly recommend that this is the point that you take away, the idea of having a vision for what your family looks like. And so I'm just going to talk about what that means for us and why we do it. And our vision for our family, if I were to try and articulate it, would be that we want our children to love learning. We want to have a learning culture in our family. We also want them to be good critical thinkers and to be able to question things well and be able to know where to go to find answers to their questions. And as well as that, we also want our Christian faith to shine out into the home educating community, and that we would be a light to those around us. And these 3 things that I've sort of posted up as our vision, they're not like a corporate mission statement that we have written up on the wall, and they're not like a mantra that we repeat on a daily basis, but it's just helps us to bring a long-term perspective of why we're home educating and why we do things the way we do them. And it's something that helps us to guide our decision making, and it helps us to formulate our problem solving and conversations, and it also acts as a bit of a yardstick to measure how we're doing. So if we're going through a tough season and we are really at our wits' end as to how we're doing this and why we're doing it, then we can sort of come back to, why is it that we're home educating? What is it that we want to achieve? And how do we course correct to come back to that goal and that long-term vision. And this isn't something that we have set in stone, and I mean, we're 4 years into our journeys, and we hope that will continue on, but we hope that our vision will grow with us as we go. And this isn't something that I've said to Amy that this is what we have to achieve, and this is how we're going to do it. And likewise, it's not like Amy has said, well, I'm at home doing the home educating, so this is what I'm going to set out to do. But rather, we work as a team in our marriage, and we have come together and we decided on, this is what we want our home editing to look like for us. And, it helps us to be pulling in the same direction as we go. And it's in discussing what this picture looks like, it means that we've opened up this dialogue for conversation that over time just leads to so many other topics of conversation, and it helps us to set expectations of what the day-to-day looks like. It helps us to decide where we spend our money. It helps us to form our philosophy of how we do this. And it really is kind of foundational to underpinning what we do. So I mentioned that we work as a team in this, and I want to talk a little bit about how this plays out in the day-to-day nitty-gritty of our lives. Because Amy is obviously at home with the 4 children, and so is their primary input whilst I'm at work. But that by no means means that she does it alone, because whilst I'm away at work, I know that we're aligned on what we want to achieve, and so she can get on and do the stuff, but I will often act as a sounding board for her. So if she's starting out on a 6-week block of topics and things, then she might come to me and we'll talk about like, oh, what do we want to cover, or what curriculum do we want to buy, and we'll talk about like the pros and cons of each thing. Or it might be that we're talking about what classes we're going to go to, and we come back to our vision of like our children loving learning. So if there's a particular thing that one of our kids is interested in, then we will then say, okay, well, how do we follow that interest? And our decision making comes back to what is our big picture, what is our ethos for what we're trying to achieve. And this isn't just about how Amy and I relate together, but it also helps me relate well to the children, because whilst I'm not there for quite a bit of the time because I'm at work, it means that I can be involved in this because I'm invested in the vision, I'm aligned to that, and I know what is going on. And so when I get to physically be there, then it means that I can talk to the kids about what they're covering at the moment. I can talk to the kids about things that they're finding tricky, because we do this as a team, and that means that when I'm there, I know what's going on, and I can bring a different voice, but we're singing from the same hymn sheet. And don't know if you've noticed, but earlier on today, I put a PDF up on the session, and what the PDF is just 5 simple questions to help you think about forming your vision for what your family looks like and what home educating looks like in your family. And I know that some of you will have been doing this for many, many years and will be well in your groove and know what you're doing. But if you've never had the conversation, or you've never had a dialogue together as husband and wife, or then it's well worth taking the time to sit down, talk about it, and talk through, like, what do we want this to look like? And equally, if you're just starting out on your journey, then well worth taking the time to think about it and put those foundations in. So talking about practical tips for being involved, I'm not sure that I really have any sort of top 10 tips about being a home ed dad. There are things that Amy will suggest that I do to help me be involved, and I'm going to hold my hand up and say that I really don't do all of them, but occasionally Amy listens to a lot of podcasts and she reads a lot of books, and there'll be things like she'll come to me and say, I've just listened to this episode of the Read Aloud Revival, and I think that it would be really great if you listen to this and tell me what you think, and tell me how we can incorporate this into our day-to-day. And it's 40 minutes out of my day to listen to a podcast, and so I can do it whilst I'm out on my run. And then we can go back and talk about it. There's an absolute ton of home ed Facebook groups out there, and there's the big ones like Home Ed UK, or there's an American one, Morning Baskets and more. And I'm members of those groups. And so when I'm on my commute, I'm on the train and I'm just scrolling through Facebook, then those posts come up on my feed. And so it might be just the simplest of things, like something catches my eye about like a book to read, that I can then text Amy and say, hey, what have we thought about doing this or doing that? And it just helps me to sort of stay tuned in to what's going on, and be able to input into what's going on at home whilst I'm not there. And it's not just the big Facebook groups, but also the local ones. Like we used to have a local Harrogate co-op that I was a member of, so like I know what the kids are doing at the co-op, so I can sit down and have a conversation with them, like, oh, how was co-op today? I saw that you were doing this, that, or the other. And so it just helps me keep that relationship with what's going on. And it means that when I have a day off work, or Amy needs to take the kids to the doctors, that the schedule doesn't go out the window and life becomes daddy daycare whilst I look after the kids, but I can keep up with what's going on. And don't get me wrong, Amy has to leave me a list of like, Joel should be doing 3 sentences of handwriting, or Abby needs to do her maths. And the kids find it hilarious when I try and do their Spanish with them, because I don't speak a word of Spanish and they're trying to do cue cards with me. And it's incredibly funny, but I give it a go and I try and stay involved as much as I can. And this sort of plays into our philosophy of creating a learning culture in our household, because it isn't just Amy and the kids that are learning and having this learning culture, but I try and stay involved in that as well. And so that's how I involve them in my life. That's how I try and involve myself in what's going on with them. And when I'm working from home and when it's appropriate, I try and have them involved in my work as well. So every now and again I'll have Merrin, the 3-year-old, sat on my lap whilst I'm typing an email, or if I have 5 minutes, then I'll be all about the vastly interesting world of data analysis and insurance. That being said, there are also times when I'm working from home and I have a really important call, or I just need to concentrate and get some work done, and it's being able to set that expectation with the kids and say, I really need to concentrate right now, and need to make sure that I don't have any visitors come and see me, or I might go sit in the car for a conference call so I don't get interrupted halfway through. But in a normal working environment, when I'm in the office and I'm not working from home every day, I think that there's also a really important role for the home ed dads in the workplace. And I say this because even though the number of people home educating in the UK is growing and it is becoming more mainstream, there are still a great number of people who have never met a home educating family before. And that puts the home ed dads in a really interesting position in the workplace, because it means that we get to be an advocate for home edders, and it means that we also get to be the window into what home education is for so many people. And we become the frame of reference for home education for those around us in the office. It means that what we say or do with regard to home ed becomes and shapes and influences people's opinion of home education. And so the words that I say are then very powerful, because if it happens to crop up that I home ed my kids and people go, oh, I've never met a home educator before, what does that mean? Or what do you do about socialization? Or like, what does your wife do all day? Like, the way that I respond is vastly influential. And if I respond saying, oh yeah, we home educate, but I'm not really on board with it, or yeah, we home educate, which means that all of my money goes on curriculum, or I don't know, like, yeah, I really worry about my kids' socialization too, I'm not too sure about that, then it gives this perception that it's this thing that my wife and the kids do that I'm not a part of. And I don't want that to be the case. And I don't want that to be the case because it is really important that people know about home education. There are 3,000 people in my company. And so I know for a fact that there will be parents with children who are being bullied in school right now that they don't know what to do about. Or there will be parents of children with special educational needs that are not getting the support from their schools. Or there will be parents of children who just aren't thriving and they know that they can do better. And if I'm not a good ambassador or a good advocate of home education, then I'm doing my colleagues a disservice, and I'm changing them out of knowing about this other option. Because if they don't know that home ed is an option, then they're going to continue struggling. And I say this out of experience. And this has been massively encouraging for me in my experience, that I have about 30 colleagues sat around me in the office, and I've had conversations with people about the fact that we home educate, and two of those people out of the people who sit around me, just my immediate colleagues, have two of them have said that then their wives have discussed home educating and are seriously considering it. I just think that's incredible that I then get to be a window, I get to be a sounding board, and I get to be the point of reference for those people to help them along in their decision making. I'll share another short story as well. So in my company, we have these things called diversity and inclusion networks, and essentially they're groups of employees who get together to champion an area of life outside the workplace. And one of those networks is a parenting and family network. And in January, it must have been maybe a little bit earlier, I can't remember, is when I first had the conversation with Juliet about talking on being a home ed dad. I emailed the members of my group that I'm part of, saying, hey, I'm talking at this conference about what it means to be a home ed dad and just championing family life. Can we kind of get a mail shot out there to promote it? They were really on board with that, and immediately one of my colleagues emailed back and say, hey, we home educate as well. That's great. But the great thing is that you know, since coronavirus has hit and we've all been in lockdown, then it means that we've already opened up that dialogue as a group of parents championing parenting and family life, to then be able to be a support network to all of the other parents in the company, and of how to get through this time where they have their children at home and they're trying to home educate, albeit it's very different to normal home educating. Put that out there. And so we've been able to send out like Q&As, and people have emailed in saying, how do you do this? And we've been able to support them. And again, that's just a real privilege to be able to stand up and go and be a beacon in the company and say, look, we can support you. So I'm going to come in to close now, and just in the last few minutes talk about, you know, the theme for this conference was having a little faith. And, you know, I know, and I know a lot of you will know that choosing to home educate is not choosing the easy path. It's stepping away from that well-worn default of school and stepping out into the unknown. And I know that it is hard staying at home and doing that day in, day out. And it's hard as well having to go out to work and not being there too, because I would like to be with my kids. But the faith comes in firstly having faith in your spouse that they're doing a good job, that they know what your children need, that they are attuned to what their wants and needs are, and that they are very invested in taking your children to the next step. And it's for me, when I'm not there and I don't see what's going on every day, it's knowing that when I get in from work at 6 p.m. on an evening and the house looks like a hurricane has hit and every book and every toy is out across every surface and floor in our household, that learning has happened and that it is the best place for our children to be, is at home and thriving. In those moments, it's also having faith in the journey that this will come to pass, and it won't be every day where the house looks like a hurricane has hit, and that having faith in God in all of this, that he leads us in this, he leads us as we walk through the unknown, that he is our provider in all of this, so that when we feel like we have come to the end of ourselves and we don't know what the next step is, that we can lean on him and know that he is a good father and he has the best for us. So thank you for listening. We're going to hand over to some Q&A, and I'm going to get Amy here as well, because she is much better than me at answering questions on the fly.
Michael, if you could stop your screen share.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. Okay. So we'll just keep it on you for now, I think. So does anyone have any questions for Michael? If you know how to raise your hand, we can pick you up and have questions. I think you've addressed what was in the questions that were in the Hoover Q&A, right? Okay, I think Mike Claydon, or have you got a question, or you thumbs upping?
No, I have a question, so I'm trying to get used to using the phone. So we're just thinking about homeschooling. It's interesting to see how it works as a father, because there's very little out there, I think, by dads or for dads, so thank you for that. Your background's very much in more of a technical role in terms of your work, which probably plays into my attitudes. I was wondering if that sort of, first of all, what kind of homeschooling do you do? If it's more of a formal approach, or if it's more of a unschooling, and again, how your sort of mentality and decisions fed into that.
Yeah, so we probably lean more towards the structured learning than unschooling. You're probably better at answering this, but we like to have curriculum as a framework. We're not organized enough to follow it rigidly and to set aside X amount of time every day to do it. So we'll have the curriculums there as like a resource to lean on, but we'll then often, if there's something that piques our children's interest, then we'll dig into that a bit more, rather than just skimming through onto the next thing in the curriculum. It's sort of, we often will try and go at our own pace through things. I think in terms of my technical leaning, it's really funny, because I would say that 2 of our 4 children are much more logical and rational in their approach to things, and they really like sort of working through a problem very step by step. And then we have our 6-year-old and our 3-year-old have much more of a creative flair and are don't like that step by step approach. But I would say that the great thing about home ed is that you can just make it really individual to each child's needs.
And I think we would probably lean slightly more towards structured, mainly for me, more than our kids, because I think the idea of unschooling for children is amazing. For me, I feel like it would be a lot more work than I actually have capacity to do. So I like something that I can take out of a box and I can tick off and say, right, I have done that. That's finished for today. What's the next thing? And we had a long conversation about it not that long ago about actually maybe another style of learning would suit our kids better. But ultimately, I can't do that and they won't learn in that way because I can't facilitate that. And we need something that works for both me and the children rather than something that works for one of us and not the other.
Thank you. Unless there's other people asking questions, I'll dive in with another one. So it's good to hear about how you sort of share podcasts and other things to make sure that you're, I guess, thinking through things together. And my wife and I find that helpful on various things to be, I guess, considering the same stuff and discussing it together. But have there been any particular points of conflict, and how did you sort of manage that as a couple?
That's a good question. What we really argued over.
Sorry, very personal.
That's fine.
I
think probably the thing we find most difficult is not necessarily how the kids learn. It's more how I manage and get things done around the house, and it's more that that it can, like, if I give Mike a list of things to do, it's normally, this is what I'd aim to get done in a day, but I probably won't do most of it because I'm a lot more scatterbrained than you are. Whereas if I give it to Mike, he will get nearly everything done in quite a regimented order. And then it's a bit of, well, if I did all this, why can't you manage to do all of this in a day? So I think that's probably our biggest difficulty.
Yeah, I think as well, like, there is that, and I think because Amy is in the trenches, as it were, day in, day out, and so when she is starting off like the next block of work that we're going to focus on, then Amy will often come up with these really lovely timetables or plans of like, this is what we're going to do. And then I often take the difficult role of having to say, is that really realistic? Do you really think you can achieve that? And then like going through the process of like just crossing stuff out and saying, no, we need to allow more time for this, that, or the other.
I think the thing that's been most helpful for us in figuring that out is learning about how each other works and how we both think differently. And I know that I totally overschedule. So actually I will take it to Mike and say, this is what I'm trying to fit in. It doesn't fit. What do I get rid of? So it's not like he sits down there and goes, you can't do this and you can't do this. It's that I'm asking for help. And like for you, learning that actually my brain just is a bit more scatterbrained, and that means that some stuff works a lot better for me and some stuff works a lot worse for me, and you need to have a bit of grace for the times when it looks like a disaster.
Yeah.
Which is a lot.
Thank you. I'm sorry, again, one last question. So Amy, this is probably more for you in terms of, it seems like if the husband's the one who's earning the money, almost, but at least he's going to be away for most of the time, and therefore a lot of roles going to be supporting the wife who's doing the majority of the in the trenches work. So how have you, what's the best way to be supported as a home educating mother?
As in how to support him while he works full time.
How can he support you? So when I come home in the evening, how can I best support my wife?
Yeah, I think it was a lot easier. In some ways, having him working at home all the time right now is really useful because he's around for lunchtime and stuff, which makes a big difference. In other ways, it was a lot easier when he had an hour to come down after work, because when he gets in, I've just had a full day of just kids in my face, and I'm like, I just need you to help, like pitch in and do any. Normally, he will take over and do bedtime, and I'll clean up the kitchen and the house because I feel like I can't do kids anymore right now. That's an awful lot easier when he has had an hour's downtime on the train than it is right now when he walks down the stairs into chaos. So we're still figuring that out, and bedtime's getting pushed a bit later because of that. But even though he's obviously home earlier, it just takes that bit longer to work all that out, I think. Yeah, and I think space. So there's times when I'm like, I just need to have an hour in a coffee shop by myself. I need to go on a walk by myself. Please, can I have an hour this Saturday to just get out? Or I really need to sit down and plan this out, and I don't know what to do. Can you please just take the kids while I have some time to sit and do this? I think they're probably the most helpful things. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry, I'm trying to find the unmute for myself. Okay, are there any other questions? Okay, is it Iona? Yeah, can you unmute yourself there?
Hello. I live in New York, so I was quite excited at the mention of your surrogate co-op. Yeah, I think I've heard of it about a year ago, and yeah, we also have an 8-year-old girl. So anyway, the question. Great stuff about the parenting and family life championship at work. Did you start that, or
No.
are there any such models that maybe we can copy into our workplaces?
So it actually was started by a lady in the company who came back from maternity leave and felt like there wasn't a lot of support available. I mean, there was the support from HR, like the processes, but there wasn't like a wider community. Like people go to work and they talk about work, and she didn't know what to do with that. And so she suggested starting this group, and it's grown from there. I think the company that I work for, I love my company because they are just really supportive of that type of thing, and they're really good with diversity and inclusion. And so I don't think it would necessarily work in a small company. So I've worked for small companies before, and there just isn't the resource or the people to kind of get something like that going. But we do work with a lot of outside companies. Like there's an organization called like Parental Choice, and trying to think of some others, and we get them to come in and they support us in putting on like seminars and things like that. And so there are a lot of organizations that will very willingly come into businesses and talk about family life.
You did find to start with it was more towards mums going back to work, so both parents working. What does this look like? And you've tried to do some pushback on that of actually we need to support all families, not just those families, and that's been interesting at times. But yeah,
for sure.
I think
sorry, can I take another question?
I think Abby Cowley was waving before. I don't think Abby Cowley is
I was going to ask him to ask his question.
Hiya, just being a dad who works during the week, how do you view the weekends in the context of home ed? Is that a context where you carry on doing, like, focus in on home ed stuff, or is it that really a time where you guys crash out?
So it depends. For the most part, we don't do any of our structured work on a weekend, but it really depends on how the week has gone. So if we've had a week where we've just not managed to fit in like the handwriting or the maths or whatever, then we might suggest to the kids that we've not done our maths yet this week, so maybe we'll do some time doing that. But for the most part, it's just family time. But it's really where this idea of a learning culture in our family comes into play. So like if I'm in the garden with the kids and I'm doing some gardening, then I might talk to them about like chlorophyll in leaves or something like that. So it's really just like having that constant dialogue and making everything a learning opportunity.
And sometimes we do some things like we'll do poetry tea time at a weekend so we can all be there. Or if we're doing a science project that they love and I think, oh, they'd love to do this with daddy, I'll save it till the weekend so we can do it together. But we don't, or I'll ask him to do, like, I do not know my times tables. I have tried for so many years. So I'll normally say to Mike, Abby's learning her times tables. I can't get any further with it. Can you take over and do that? And you'll do that on an evening or a weekend or something sometimes. But mostly it's fun stuff at a weekend, even if it's learning themed.
Yeah.
Okay, we will need to end it there. Michael, are you out and about on the app, on the Hoover app in the chat group?
Oh yes, I'm loving the Hoover app.
Okay.
So
okay, so I'm glad that you are, and you can actually set up, if there isn't a group already for dads, please set one up and you guys can connect there. You're also welcome to sort out any other virtual meetings and that kind of thing off your own bat. But that is the end of the session, so thank you very much. Thank you to Michael, that was really good. Thank you.
Thank you everyone. Bye.